Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
My stepdad is a currency collector, and over the years he's taught me about the value of old bills and coins. Last year he gave me this really special $50 bill from 1974 for my birthday. It wasn't just any bill, it was in perfect condition and had this unique serial number that made it worth way more than $50 to collectors. But to me it was priceless because it came from him. I kept that bill in my phone case all the time. I know it sounds weird, but I liked having it with me. My stepdad always said it was good luck, and honestly, I just felt better knowing it was there. He even took pictures of it and wrote down the serial number in his collection book, because he's super organized about that stuff. So there I was in my multimedia class on what started as a normal Tuesday. We were doing this partner project where we had to create a digital presentation about famous artists. I was sitting at my usual spot when the teacher called for everyone to find their partners. I got up to ask her a question about the assignment requirements, and that's when my friend from across the room waved me over. My friend asked if I wanted to be partners for the project, and I told her that sounded great. I grabbed my stuff and moved over to work with her. We spent about 20 minutes brainstorming ideas and researching different artists on the computers. Everything was going fine until I reached for my phone to check the time. That's when I felt it. The phone case felt different, thinner somehow. I opened it up and my heart just dropped. The $50 bill was gone. I started frantically checking my pockets, looking around the floor, retracing my steps. Nothing. I asked everyone if they had seen a $50 bill that fell out of my phone case. The four people sitting at the table where I had been originally all looked at me blankly. The first student said they hadn't seen anything. Another suggested maybe I dropped it somewhere else. The third one asked if I was sure I had it with me today. The fourth apologized and said they hadn't seen any money lying around. Something about the way they all responded so quickly felt off. They didn't even look around or seem concerned about helping me find it. My friend who I was partnering with noticed I was upset and came over to ask what was wrong. I explained that the $50 bill my stepdad gave me was missing from my phone case. She knew about the bill because I'd shown it to her before, the one from 1974 that was so special to me. She also knew the kids at that table better than I did, since she'd gone to middle school with them. She offered to ask them herself, thinking maybe they'd tell her the truth. I watched her walk over to the table and talk to them. I could see them all shaking their heads and acting innocent, but something about their body language seemed wrong. When she came back, she had this look on her face that told me she didn't believe them either. That's when I decided to tell the teacher. I walked up to her desk and explained what happened. She asked if I was absolutely sure I had the bill with me today, and I said that I always kept it in my phone case and had checked it that morning. She said this was a serious accusation and that she needed to call the school police officer. The school police officer arrived within minutes and took statements from everyone. He said he needed to investigate properly and asked me to come to his office after class ended. I spent the next 2 hours sitting in that tiny office, missing my 7th period class and having to stay an hour after school ended. Finally, the officer called me back in and told me he had interviewed all 4 students. 2 of them had confessed to taking money from my phone case, but they said they had already spent it on snacks and drinks. I felt sick. This wasn't just $50, this was irreplaceable. When my stepdad picked me up, I was almost crying telling him what happened. He told me not to worry because we were going to get that bill back. I thought it was impossible since they had already spent it, but he reminded me that he had the serial number and photos. He explained that if they really did spend it at a store, there was a chance we could track it down. I thought he was being overly optimistic, but my stepdad is the kind of person who doesn't give up easily. We drove around to every gas station, convenience store, and shop within a mile radius of the school. At each place, we asked if they had received any 1974 $50 bills that day and if we could check the serial numbers on their bills. Most places were helpful but didn't have any old 50s. We were about to give up when we pulled into a 7-Eleven. The clerk was this older guy who seemed really interested in helping us. He mentioned that he remembered getting an old 50 that day because it was unusual to see bills from the 70s. He went through their cash and pulled out a 50. My stepdad compared it to his photos and the serial number he had written down and said, this was definitely the stolen bill. The clerk asked if we wanted to see who had used it, explaining that they had security cameras. We watched the footage from earlier that day and there they were, two of the four kids from my class, clear as day, using my $50 bill to buy energy drinks and chips. I couldn't believe how stupid they were to use such a distinctive bill so close to the school. The clerk offered to make us a copy of the footage for the police, which we gladly accepted. The next morning, my stepdad and I went straight to the school police office with the security footage and the recovered bill. The officer was impressed with our detective work and said he would be able to press charges now. I asked what was going to happen to the thieves, and he explained that this wasn't their first offense. Both students were already on probation for previous incidents involving drug possession and assault, and this theft charge violated the terms of their probation. I had no idea they were already in trouble with the law. The officer explained that because they were repeat offenders and had violated their probation, this case would be taken much more seriously. A few days later, I found out that one of the kids who stole my money was arrested and sent to jail while awaiting trial. The other one got additional probation and community service. They also had to pay restitution to cover the actual collector's value of the bill, which was way more than $50. When I got my bill back, it felt like the right thing had happened. Those kids thought they could just steal from me and get away with it, but they didn't count on my stepdad's determination and their own stupidity in spending such a unique bill so close to the school. They went from acting all innocent to looking terrified when they found out they were going to jail. I've been in the Marines for about 6 years now, and let me tell you, I've seen some stuff, but this story takes the cake for the most entitled person I've ever encountered. I joined the Marines right out of high school because I didn't know what else to do with my life. College wasn't for me and I needed direction. The Corps gave me that. After basic training and my first deployment, I found myself stationed in the DC area, which meant I got pulled into a lot of special events and ceremonies. Being 6'1" and 210 pounds, with what my commanding officer called the Marine look, I was often selected for these public-facing assignments. Every year around Christmas time, the Marines run this program called Toys for Tots. It's where we collect toys and gifts for kids whose families can't afford much for Christmas. They usually pick Marines who look the part, tall, fit, the whole 9 yards. For the women, they want that perfect blend of tough and polished. It's as much about marketing as it is about helping kids, especially in the DC area where image matters. This particular year I got assigned to work an event at the Smithsonian with my fellow Marine. She was this 5'4", 135-pound Puerto Rican woman we all called Pocket because of her size. Don't let her height fool you though. She was a 2-tab black belt in judo and had a temper that could melt steel when provoked. The event was some fancy black tie affair surrounding the Hope Diamond display. Honestly, I never understood the obsession with that thing. It's just a big shiny rock that sits there doing nothing. But whatever. Rich people love their sparkly things. So there we were in our dress blue uniforms, standing by our donation bins and toy display, smiling and shaking hands with all these wealthy donors and politicians. The whole thing was pretty routine at first. People would come up, drop off a toy or write a check, pose for a photo, and move on. Some didn't even donate, they just wanted the photo op to show how generous they were. After the initial wave of donations, the event shifted into full party mode. Waitstaff started circulating with drinks and fancy appetizers. Pocket and I were standing there trying not to get our white gloves dirty while sneaking a few bites of the food when this woman approached us. I'll never forget her. She looked like a female version of Steve Buscemi, but heavier, squeezed into a dress that was clearly fighting for its life. The buttons on her outfit looked like they were screaming for mercy. She walked up to us and started barking orders. She told us she was dry and demanded we get snappy with a refill. At first, we didn't realize she was talking to us. I mean, we were clearly Marines in dress uniforms, not wait staff, but after a few seconds of us not responding, she got louder. She yelled at us again, saying she knew we could hear her and telling us to get in gear because flirting time was over. That's when it clicked. This woman thought we were servers. I looked at Pocket. She looked at me. We both looked at this woman, and it took a moment to process what was happening. I politely asked if I could help her. She said it was about time and demanded a refill. She also wanted me to get her some of those little appetizers because they had stopped bringing them out. She complained that we really needed to stay on top of things. Pocket tried to politely correct her, saying she was sorry but we didn't work there. She explained we were just there with the Toys for Tots program. The woman said she didn't care what we thought and told us to get in gear or she'd have our jobs. She said she would not be talked to by someone like us. Then this woman did something that made my blood boil. She tossed her nearly empty glass at Pocket, who caught it reflexively. Some of the leftover liquid splashed onto Pocket's dress blue coat, which meant she'd probably need a new one. Those things cost several $100s. I could see the anger building in Pocket's eyes. She's Puerto Rican and has a temper to match, so I tried to defuse the situation. I told the woman again that we weren't waitstaff and tried to explain our role there. She cut me off and said she didn't want to hear my excuses. Then she asked if I knew who her husband was. She stuck her finger right under my nose and launched into this tirade about how her husband was some Southern senator's main campaign funder. She threatened to make sure I'd be sleeping under newspaper and other colorful threats. This went on for about 10 seconds while people started staring and staff members began heading our way. I was at a loss. I wanted to put this woman in a compliance hold, but I could already picture the CNN headline if a male Marine laid hands on a politically connected woman in front of all these people. Fortunately, I didn't have to make that choice. Pocket made it for me. Pocket told the woman she needed to calm down and asked her to please take her glass back. She held out the woman's glass when she said this. The woman immediately switched her focus from me to Pocket and slapped the glass out of her hands. I could see Pocket's control wavering, but there wasn't much I could do. Then this woman made the critical mistake. She started jabbing Pocket in the chest with her finger, emphasizing each word. She told Pocket to shut her mouth, but she used a racial slur that I won't repeat here. I cringed visibly at that slur because I knew exactly what was about to happen, and it did. In judo, there's a move called the udagatame, basically a standing arm lock. Pocket was a 2-tab black belt, and she put that training to use. Pocket snatched the woman's arm, locked her out, and slammed her face straight into the wall next to us. Blood, broken nose, tree wall dust, the whole package. Pocket didn't say a word, just had this grim smile that said she was about to mess this woman up so badly her grandchildren would be born with handprints on their souls. It was awesome and honestly a little attractive to watch someone get their comeuppance so perfectly. Being the senior Marine and somewhat cooler-headed, I carefully pulled Pocket back. It was like handling a small but very dangerous animal. The entitled woman slid to the floor much quieter now that she was trying to breathe through a mixture of blood and drywall dust. Security finally showed up and hauled the woman away while taking us to a separate room for questioning. They reviewed the security footage, and there was plenty of it. What was all the expensive jewelry displays around? Pocket wanted to press assault charges for being called a slur and having liquid thrown at her. I called our commanding officer to let them know what happened, and they sent a van to pick us and the toys up. Funny thing is, it never made it to the news. I think that more than anything saved Pocket from serious trouble. When we came back to the main event area to pack up our display, most of the wealthy guests gave us a wide berth. There was one notable exception though, this elderly lady, who came up and asked if she could give Pocket a hug. She gave her this grandmotherly hug, patted her on the back, and took her hands. She told Pocket that in her younger years, she would have stomped that woman flat herself. She said it was wonderfully done and called her dear. Then she just wandered off to rejoin the party like nothing happened. It was adorable. Back in 2017, I had a job at a small family restaurant and was looking for a second job to help me and my roommate save up for our own place. We were staying with her family at the time, and she was also job hunting. She had multiple leg injuries and other health issues that made finding work tough, but we finally found a restaurant that was about to open on the same street as my current job. I grabbed 2 applications on my way to work and turned them in the next day. When we went for interviews on my day off, the manager started by telling us that this was really just a formality and that he was going to hire us both anyway. We thought that was a good sign. The new place was going to be a 24-hour diner, similar to other chain diners, but with a 50s theme. The woman who interviewed us used to manage at the chain restaurant. It was across from several bars, so they expected good business. The interior was still under construction, so management told us they'd text when training started. 2 months passed before we heard anything about training. Not exactly promising. When training finally began, it became clear these people had no idea what they were doing. The place was a disaster waiting to happen. They had ridiculous rules like no breaks no matter how long your shift was, no drinking water where customers could see you, and the food quality was questionable at best. The restaurant had 2 floors, which became important because of my roommate's leg problems. She made sure management knew about her injuries from day one, and they promised they wouldn't put her upstairs. That was another lie. On soft opening night, they stuck her upstairs anyway. This meant she'd have to go up and down stairs multiple times throughout her shift to get food for her tables. When she asked to switch sections with another waitress, the managers told her to get over it. One of the other waitresses was the manager's niece, and the favoritism was obvious. This girl had no clue what she was doing. She dropped everything, took forever to enter orders into the computer system, and couldn't even make a basic vanilla milkshake. The system was terrible and crashed multiple times daily. But even accounting for that, she was hopeless. My roommate, being the helpful person she is, often showed the niece how to use the system. Well, guess what happened next? The niece ran to her aunt and claimed that my roommate had shoved her off the computers and was stealing her customers. After the soft opening, the managers seemed desperate to fire us, but they couldn't because neither of us had any write-ups. The niece kept trying to pin bullying accusations on us, but other waitresses quickly disproved them. Then the restaurant opened for real business. July 13th, 2017 was the day everything exploded. It was my day off, but my roommate had to work. My aunt and uncle from Minnesota were visiting, and my parents suggested we all go to dinner at the diner to support my roommate. The kitchen messed up badly. My uncle's sandwich was so wrong that he asked to speak to the manager. He was polite and clear about his complaint, but the manager told my roommate that my uncle was complaining about her service. My family left, but I stayed since I was her ride. About 30 minutes later, I was waiting for a milkshake and realized I hadn't seen my roommate in a while. I'd seen her leaning against the wall earlier, probably because her leg was bothering her, but now she was nowhere to be found. I started looking for someone to ask about my milkshake when I saw her coming down the stairs. She didn't look at me but went straight behind the milkshake bar. I heard her politely ask another waitress to let her by so she could get her backpack. My heart dropped. I knew exactly what had happened. She'd been upstairs in the office. I packed up when she went to the restroom. She came out in street clothes instead of her uniform. I was ready to go when one of the hosts came over and asked if we were okay. She brushed past him and left the building. I told him to cancel the milkshake and followed her out. He followed us, still asking if everything was okay. That's when my roommate turned around and shouted that they had fired her because she leaned against the wall for 45 seconds. I told her to wait for me and went back inside. One of the managers was already downstairs. Thanks to my theater background, I knew how to project my voice, and I made sure the whole building could hear me when I announced that because they fired my roommate over an injury that she made sure they were aware of, they could consider my employment terminated as well. Later, my roommate told me the whole story. The managers had been creating false write-ups and fake complaints against her, including making up that story about my uncle. They'd been building a case to fire her using completely fabricated evidence, including the fake bullying charges. But here's where things got interesting. My roommate's family knew some important people in the city and state, including the city sheriff and one of our state senators. One of her family members got her a meeting with the senator and she told him everything that had happened. The senator gave her contact information for the labor board and a little organization called the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. While she got in touch with them, I started a social media campaign, sharing our story and asking friends to spread it. Whenever we were in town together and locals asked about good restaurants, we made sure to warn them about how this place treated their staff. We asked them to share the story too. It got to the point where my roommate overheard other people, including lawyers, talking about it on the streets and in the coffee shop where she waited for me to get off work. My boss at my primary job knew everything that was happening at the diner. She'd heard both of us complain about our concerns and frustrations. Once we were no longer working there, she and her staff joined us in making jokes and throwing shade at the place. I still remember her saying that the drunks were the only reason that place was staying open. Some of my co-workers were keeping tabs on the diner too. On November 13th, 2017, exactly 4 months to the day after they fired my roommate, the cook at my job asked me if I had heard that the diner was closed now. I had to pull out my phone to check. Sure enough, there it was in the local news. The diner was closing their doors immediately. They gave some excuse about management changes and said it was only temporary. But to this day, that space is still boarded up. My roommate and I went out for celebratory milkshakes that night. We didn't expect the whole place to shut down, but we don't regret making those calls or social media posts one bit. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.